And that moment kind of clicked for me in September '08 when the entire financial system collapsed, and I was the only person on staff who had a background in finance. So you never know where your various choices in life can lead and how they can prepare you for important moments in your career down the road.
Chris, you in addition to taking 40% pay cut, which everybody seems to have done, you also have the honor of getting to work 100 hours a week. Right now, the White House is grappling not only with two wars and the financial crisis and trying to get the economy straightened out and major initiatives on health care and energy and a budget, but now you've got swine flu to deal with. And I know that the cabinet secretary is particularly engaged with organizing the response of the government. What kind of hours are you working these days, and how hard is that with respect to trying to balance your family and the other aspects of your life?
There really isn't much of a balance right now at all. I mean, you just work all the time. I mean, I was actually saying this to the president the other day. We were walking along, and I worked for him back in the Senate, and back in the Senate, you work 4 weeks and you get a recess, and then you always have August in the distance, August recess. And one of the odd things about the White House is there is no recess. Every day is another day. I mean, we joke, and Rahm Emanuel has said, and John knows this quote. I don't know if it's a Rahm quote, but the best thing about Friday, it's only 2 more days until Monday. So that gives you a sense about the mentality of work around the White House. But no, I mean, the hours are very intense. You're dealing with, literally, in the case of the flu epidemic, you literally are dealing with life and death issues that could affect millions of people. And, so it's intense. There probably is not a huge balance in your life. But you also take a step back and get a sense of the honor of this position, a sense of the history that you're part of. And as John said, we're in the middle of 2 wars and an economy that's hopefully on the upswing, the range of problems in health, education, energy, the whole panoply of issues in front of us. But that also brings opportunity as well to really take this country in a new direction and bring about the change that Barack Obama espoused during the campaign. So yeah, it's pretty intense, but it's also, there are some days that are just very exciting, and you have the chance to make a difference. It makes it all worthwhile.
You're not sleeping on the couch yet?
I'm not sleeping on the couch, actually.
A friend of mine was recruited and was told it would be a family-friendly White House. She has teenage girls, and so I saw her a couple days ago. I said, well, is it family-friendly? And she said, well, the big thing was I got to take a laptop, secured laptop home, so now I can work at home. That was the family-friendly nature of it. So,
Karen, you've been in the civil rights movement for a very long time. The Times just did a poll that on the question of race in America, and found that 2/3 of the people thought things had improved, and actually race relations in the United States were good today. Is particularly the election of President Obama mean you can retire, or we can go out of business? How assess where we are in civil rights in the country and the question of race, and what work really needs to be done by this administration to make the country really one America?
I'd be happy to talk about that. I do want to say that if you want to do public service, what's really important is that you choose something that you're personally passionate about. All 3 of us, all 4 of us actually, have a reason that we're here, and that makes the pay cut worthwhile, that makes the hours worthwhile. If you don't find what you're personally passionate about, it's probably not a career path for you. The rewards, though, when you're passionate about something and you make an advance, are enormous. I know for the Asian community, when I first came to Washington and I would talk to other civil rights groups and I'd say, I work on Asian American civil rights, they'd say, what's that? Because there's such a perception. And there's reason for it. The Committee of 100 is an example of the success of the Asian American community. And I would have to explain, the underbelly of the community, the people who come as refugees, who came with little money, who are illiterate, who don't have education, who are among the most impoverished in our community. And through the years, we've managed to get people to understand that A, Asian Americans are an important part and a growing part of who we are as Americans. B, we are Americans, because that was also the challenge. Whenever I would go somewhere, they would assume that I was lobbying on behalf of some foreign interest, and I would have to keep explaining, no, I'm talking about Asians here in America. We have made progress not only because we've elected an African American as president, but look at the whole cabinet. It really is very representative of who we are as the U.S. Yet we still know that there are many challenges that are facing us. We still see, for example, there's not a single Asian American on the federal appellate bench. Out of several hundred positions, not one. We have not had an Asian American woman ever sit on an appellate court bench. Right now, we still only have a handful, I think it's something like 8 in the federal judiciary out of 600 something. So that shows you just in one segment of society how much further we need to go. And the other thing that has happened is it's been clearer that the disparities, the economic disparities that are based on race are still not only persistent but have grown. And so one of the things that we're focusing on in the civil rights community is how do we look at race and how do we also look at economic disadvantage? And what are the policies that we can move together both to rise all boats but also to close the disparity that we have between different communities. It's very exciting for me because the Asian American community, when I first started, we're pounding the door to get at the table. And now we're really not only at the table, but we're leading a lot of tables. And that's a lot of responsibility. My John Podesta story was, we used to rely on some of our colleagues to get to the White House. And so I called Wade Henderson, who's a well-known leader of the Leadership Conference. I said, Wade, and we're working on Bill Einlee, and I said, can you call John Podesta and tell him, that we need this? And he said, call him yourself. I thought, call him myself? Would he take my call? Does he know who I am? And so I steeled myself. I dialed, I called. Of course, he wasn't available. I left a message. I thought, oh, well, okay, we'll see what happens. He called back 2 hours later, and my office was running around, John Podesta's on the phone, John Podesta's on the phone. And then I knew we had gotten to a place where we could actually talk to the White House, to the Chief of Staff, that we were meeting regularly with the President, that as a community, our contributions were beginning to be acknowledged and understood and valued. And so we still have a way to go, still not out of business yet, but really I'm hoping to go out of business hopefully in the next 10, 20 years, so let's see.
Julie, Chris talked about the 100-hour work weeks, the long days, but he looked back longingly for his service on Capitol Hill. Is it still like that? And I want to ask you a question. You were in the financial sector for so long. Are people now calling you up, your old friends, and saying, I'm thinking about a career change right now, and can you help me out?
John, it sounds like you're speaking from experience. Maybe you've received some of these calls yourself from former investment bankers, but yes, we certainly have. I certainly have many former colleagues, very senior colleagues. Not people who are at my level, but heads of whole global operations of top 5 bulge bracket firms who are looking for a Senate staff position as a way to get involved. Unfortunately, what I tell a lot of these folks is unless they have a genuine interest in public policy, as Karen said, I think it will be difficult to be happy doing the type of work we do. Again, given the hours, there's very little pay, and many folks simply hadn't been thinking about public policy. A lot of my colleagues in the financial services area were giving back in other ways to the arts or their local neighborhood, but again, there was this attitude that Washington was sort of beneath them. But in terms of the hours in the Senate, our committee doesn't really honor recess periods anymore, and we haven't for the last couple of years. And we're certainly working from one crisis to another. I remember this really reached like the absolute peak in September when literally around the clock. My boss was getting updates from the then Bush administration officials and the Federal Reserve about conditions in the financial markets and necessary